He thought he was returning to his life, but something else was waiting. The comeback is not a loud film. It doesn't shout, doesn't bleed all over the screen. It waits, it listens, and then, when you let your guard down, it whispers something you were never meant to hear. When it was released in 1978, audiences barely noticed. It slipped through theaters with little noise, but over time, a shadow clung to it, not because of what's in the script, but because of what was left out. The more you look, the more the film resists being understood. Scenes went missing, crew walked off, audio appeared that no one could explain. The deeper you dig, the more the comeback feels like it wasn't just made, it was uncovered. It's easy to call it cult horror, easy to call it forgotten, but those who worked on it still flinch when asked, not out of pride, out of memory. These aren't production notes, they're trace evidence, pieces of a film that may have captured more than fiction. Here are 20 weird facts you didn't know about the comeback. And if you think all the ghosts stayed in the story, you haven't been listening close enough. Fact 1. The scene that was cut so deep, it vanished. It wasn't graphic, it didn't involve violence, but something about that scene made people physically recoil. In early cuts of the comeback, there was a moment of near total stillness. A woman, silent, pale, unmoving, stood at the end of a bed. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. The camera didn't cut away. Test audiences shifted in their seats. Some claimed they felt trapped inside the frame. One reportedly said, "It wasn't the character that scared me, it was what she brought with her." Producers insisted the scene be removed for international release. It wasn't questioned. It was pulled. But what came next wasn't expected. When the studio attempted to reinsert the footage for the director's cut, it was gone. Not misplaced, not mislabeled, just absent. Multiple sources confirmed it had been cataloged. The canister was logged, shelved, and then nothing. Its file entry is still in the archive, marked with one word, missing. Walker never reshot it. Some say he refused to, others claim he never had the chance. And to this day, when that scene plays out in people's memories, no two descriptions are ever the same. Fact 2. They didn't want him to act, they wanted him to break. Jack Jones was known for control on stage, in interviews, in every note he sang. But on this film, that control was unwelcome. Walker didn't want performance, he wanted erosion. The scripts given to Jones were altered constantly. Scenes were rearranged without warning. Emotional beats were fed to other characters, leaving Jones disoriented on purpose. Even between takes, the isolation was preserved. Crew were told not to comfort him. Co-stars were encouraged to avoid eye contact. Every part of the environment was engineered to dismantle the idea of stability. And it worked. Jones began forgetting which version of a scene was real. He asked if he'd already filmed something when the camera hadn't even rolled yet. One day, during a quiet take, his voice cracked mid-sentence. He kept going, but his hands were trembling. That shot stayed in the final cut. Walker would later say, "I didn't need him to act like he was falling apart. I just had to wait long enough." Fact 3. The house didn't need permission to haunt. The location wasn't a set. It was a real estate rented, not decorated. Walker insisted on filming in an environment untouched by design. "We're not staging fear," he said. "We're stepping into it." From the first day, crew reported strange details. Corners colder than the rest of the room, locked doors swinging open, muffled voices with no source. Most chalked it up to old wiring, drafts, imagination. But the stories kept coming. A boom mic picked up what sounded like breathing long and strained, but only when recording indoors. Jones refused to stay inside the house overnight. One technician started leaving charms taped beneath the equipment. And in one particular upstairs room, the crew refused to enter alone after an assistant editor saw her own reflection move before she did. There were no accidents, no injuries, just a growing sense that the building wasn't hosting the production, it was observing it. Fact 4. The scene so convincing, police thought it was real. The call came in just after dusk. A neighbor had walked past the property where the comeback was filming and caught a glimpse through an uncurtained window. Blood, candles, and a figure lying still on the floor. Emergency services arrived within 20 minutes. They didn't knock. They entered fast and hard, assuming they were dealing with a homicide. What they found was a film set in mid-setup props strewn about, an actor still in position, stage blood everywhere. But something about the scene didn't feel right. Then came the footage. Walker offered to show them the tape from the previous take, but when the reel was pulled, it was blank. Nothing had been recorded. The camera had worked fine all day. The red light had been on. The sound operator logged the scene, yet the playback was empty white noise, then black screen. The authorities stayed longer than expected. They asked questions that went beyond protocol. Who was in the house before the crew? Has this scene been rehearsed before? Eventually, they left. No report was filed, but the actor involved refused to lie down for the next take, and the next morning, Walker reassigned the scene to a different room. The window was boarded up. The reel never used again. Fact 5. The director nearly became the killer, literally. At one point in pre-production, Pete Walker told his team that the masked killer in The Comeback wouldn't be cast at all. There would be no actor, no stunt double, only him. He wanted to control the pacing, the posture, the absence of identity. It has to feel wrong, he said. It has to move like something pretending to be human. A mask was molded. Walker rehearsed in secret. A few test shots were filmed, no dialogue, just him stepping through doorways, holding the sickle with deliberate awkwardness. The footage was never publicly shown, but those who saw it said it felt wrong in a way you couldn't articulate. One assistant described it as violence without a face. Days later, Walker dropped the idea. He didn't give a reason. He simply told the costume team to destroy the mask. It wasn't. It ended up in storage, misplaced. Years later, a photo surfaced of it boxed, untouched, with a label in Walker's handwriting, "Do not wear." Fact 6. The scream that came from real terror. Pamela Stevenson's scream in one key scene isn't cinematic. It's primal. It slices through the air without polish, without cue. And that's because she didn't know what was coming. In the script, her character was to enter a blood-soaked room and react to a staged murder. Tableau, rubber guts, red paint, a mannequin. She rehearsed for it. She was ready, but Walker had different plans. On the day of the shoot, the props were swapped. What she walked into was real fresh animal entrails from a butcher, unrefrigerated, still warm. The smell hit first, then the texture, then the realization. The scream wasn't performance, it was a reaction to betrayal. Stevenson left the set for the rest of the day. Walker didn't apologize, he simply said, "We got what we needed." In the final cut, the camera doesn't flinch. It lingers as she loses composure, as the audience hears something most horror films can't manufacture. The moment when a human being realizes the room is real. Fact 7. The mask didn't belong on set or anywhere. The killer's mask in The Comeback is unforgettable not because of its detail, but because of its emptiness. No expression, no identity, just a waxy stillness that seems to absorb the room. It wasn't custom-made. It was pulled from an old storage room, part of an unfinished student film from years earlier. That project had been abandoned after the lead actor experienced a breakdown during filming. Walker chose the mask the moment he saw it. "It doesn't hide anything," he said. "It erases." Prue avoided touching it. The actor wearing it complained of headaches and dizziness. The wardrobe assistant claimed it changed color slightly under different lighting without being painted. Once filming ended, the mask was packed for archival storage. But when the props team went to collect it, it was gone. A year later, it allegedly appeared in a background shot of a French horror short, uncredited, unexplained. When asked, the director denied using any mask at all. Some believe it never left the set. Others think it never belonged there to begin with. Fact 8. One scene was too real for television. In 1983, The Comeback was scheduled for a late-night broadcast on British television, but hours before airing, it was pulled without public explanation. Internally, the reason was simple. One particular scene had triggered a complaint not from the public, but from inside the broadcast company itself. The sequence featured a slow, deliberate pan across a destroyed dressing room, blood on the mirrors, scratches on the walls, and beneath it all, a sound barely audible like someone sobbing through static. An audio technician flagged it, saying it resembled a real police recording he had encountered years earlier. The kind not meant for the public, the kind that sits in evidence room. The scene was reviewed, cut, replaced with a generic transitional shot. But in some pre-broadcast copies, the original still exists. And if you isolate the audio and play it backwards, the sobbing continues, and someone whispers a name that doesn't appear in the cast or crew. Fact 9. The score that was meant to stay unreleased. Stanley Myers was a respected composer, known for melodic, emotive scores. When he signed on to The Comeback, no one expected what he delivered. The music he created wasn't melodic. It pulsed. It drifted in and out of key. It layered human breathing beneath dissonant chords. Myers finished the score, handed it in, and walked away. He never attended the screening. When asked why, he said the music had been twisted into something he didn't recognize. He later told a colleague that parts of the score were originally from a personal project tapes he recorded during a period of severe insomnia, tapes he never intended to use. When the studio asked for a soundtrack release, Myers refused. "It's not music," he said. "It's residue. The original master tapes were never made public, but a few collectors claim to own bootlegs, and those who've listened to them say the tracks include voices just under the mix, breaths, whispers, names, and none of them belong to anyone listed in the credits. Fact 10. The ending that the film forgot to survive. The version of The Comeback you know ends quietly. A final look, a final breath, ambiguity hanging in the air like smoke. But the original ending wasn't quiet at all. It was final. Walker's first cut ended with a silent walk toward the cliffside. No monologue, no score, just the ocean, and the character stepping forward. The scene was filmed one take only, but something about the footage disturbed even the crew. A boom operator reportedly left mid-shot, saying, "He's not acting." Producers rejected the ending. They claimed it offered no hope, no resolution. It would trap the audience. The reel containing the footage was marked for review, then it disappeared. No transfer, no archive listing, no digital backup. All that's left is a single photo, Jack Jones, alone at the cliff's edge, arms at his sides, looking out to a place the camera was never allowed to follow. Walker never tried to shoot it again. "The moment happened," he said, whether the film remembers it or not. Fact 11. He drew the house before he'd ever seen it. Set designer Norman Goff was known for clean lines and logic. He didn't believe in haunted spaces until this film. Before production began, Goff turned in concept sketches based only on descriptions. Hallways narrowing into nowhere, rooms with mirrors facing blank walls, staircases that looped back into themselves. When the crew arrived at the shooting location, they discovered that two of his designs matched sealed-off sections of the real house sections. Goff had no way of knowing existed. He didn't speak much during the build, slept on set, spent long hours in corners with no light. Crew joked that he was drawing blueprints for something that drew him. One sketch, labeled only Below, depicted a room no one could locate until a storage crawl space was uncovered beneath the floorboard. The layout matched exactly. After filming, Goff left the industry. He never spoke about the film again, but when asked if he'd return to design horror, he replied, "I didn't design anything, I copied." Fact 12. The name that disappeared with the body, R. Mansfield, appears briefly in the original production logs for The Comeback. Lighting assistant, day rate higher, no photo, no resume. By the third week, he stopped showing up. No notice, no explanation, just gone. When the production team tried to contact him, nothing came back. His emergency contact was blank. The address he listed didn't exist. Someone eventually asked, if no one interviewed him and no one paid him directly, how did he get hired? What's more disturbing is that in one group photo from the first week of filming, there's a man standing behind the crew. He's wearing a headset, he's holding a light meter, but no one remembers his name. The negatives of that photo were lost. The digital scan was corrupted. Only a single printed copy exists, and in it, the man's face is slightly out of focus, just enough to be unrecognizable. After production ended, the name R. Mansfield was quietly removed from the credits. No one filed a complaint. No one followed up. And to this day, no one's sure whether he ever existed at all, or whether he just showed up because something needed him to. Fact 13. The title that was too close to the truth. The Comeback wasn't always its name. The original title, typed, not handwritten, was Voices from the Room. Walker preferred it, said it described the film more honestly, not in terms of plot, but in tone, in what was underneath. Early drafts used the phrase repeatedly. Characters heard things, whispers behind walls, phone calls with no signal, footsteps echoing from locked spaces. The film was never about ghosts, it was about residue. Producers worried the title sounded too abstract, too poetic. It might confuse audiences, it might repel distributors, so they changed it. The Comeback was safer, easier to market, but Walker kept his title in another way. If you listen closely, there are sequences where the ambient audio seems to layer on itself. Subtle voices, indistinct phrases, breaths in empty hallways. One fan who digitally remastered the audio claims a single voice repeats 5 times, so low you'd miss it unless you knew where to look. The voice says, "It's still in the room." Fact 14. A candle, a corridor, and 47 takes. A man walks slowly down a hallway with a candle. That's all the scene required. No dialogue, no sudden reveals, just movement and shadow, but they couldn't get it right. The flame kept going out, not from wind, not from motion, just failing. Equipment glitched. One camera battery drained after only seconds. Jack Jones lost his place in the corridor more than once despite walking the same path. After a dozen takes, the crew joked about the hallway being cursed. After 30, they stopped laughing. The sound tech noted a low-frequency hum beneath every take, something that didn't register in any other location. On take 47, they got it. The flame held. The focus was sharp. Jones looked exhausted, but that worked. But when they played it back, a figure could be seen, just at the edge of the frame. Not reflected, not lit. Still, the figure was never identified. It doesn't appear in any production notes. No actor was assigned to that moment. They didn't reshoot. They just moved on quickly. Fact 15. The mirror scene came from a night walker. Couldn't explain. The mirror scene is quiet. No violence, no horror. Just the main character glancing up and seeing a figure behind him. What unsettles viewers is how the reflection lingers, how the presence seems not added, but already there. Walker once admitted the scene wasn't in the original script. It came to him after a night at a seaside hotel. He'd been editing another film, got up to splash water on his face, and when he looked up, he didn't see himself. Not immediately. He saw someone smaller, still, watching. A shape that didn't match any explanation. He stood in place for nearly a minute before the image blinked, not faded. Blinked, then it was gone. He described it not as fear, but as recognition. It looked like it had been waiting for me, he said. Back on set, he recreated the exact dimensions, angle, lighting, distance. The actor filmed the scene without knowing what he was reacting to. In post-production, the reflection didn't match the performer's movement, and no one could explain why. Fact 16. She walked off set and never spoke on camera again. Marion Hartley's part in The Comeback was barely a whisper, a housekeeper, 2 lines, a glance toward the camera, nothing that should leave a scar. But after filming Wrapped, she disappeared from film. No new roles, no interviews, no stage returns. Friends say she became reclusive, refused phone calls, would only respond through brief, scribbled notes. In one of them, handed quietly to a former colleague, she wrote, "I heard her speak. It wasn't scripted." No one could get her to elaborate. She was later spotted attending a niche horror festival where The Comeback was screening. She stayed in the back row, silent. When her scene appeared, she reportedly closed her eyes. And when the credits rolled, she had already left. Some say her performance felt too grounded, like she wasn't acting at all, like she wasn't playing someone who'd seen something strange she already had. Fact 17. The knife didn't want to leave the film. The ritual knife seen in The Comeback was real, not a replica, not rubber, cold, heavy, and oddly pristine. Walker insisted on authenticity. The blade was found in a private antique collection, with no paperwork, only a tag that read, "Ceremonial provenance unclear." During production, it went missing for 2 days, reappeared, wrapped in cloth, placed on the director's chair. No one claimed responsibility. After the final day of shooting, it vanished again, this time for years. In 2009, a museum in Poland received an anonymous donation, an ornate dagger, matching the blade from the film down to a scratch on the handle. Enclosed was a note, typed unsigned. It doesn't belong in fiction. Testing revealed trace material in the crevices organic, but not from any known animal. The blade now sits behind triple-pane glass. Staff say the lights above it dim twice a week, same time, same pattern. They've stopped asking why. Fact 18. One film student didn't just analyze the movie, he vanished into it. In 1980, a student named Colin R. began writing a thesis on The Comeback for his master's program. His focus was the psychology of isolation in low-budget horror. At first, the work was typical notes, annotations, scene breakdowns, but soon, things shifted. His notebooks became fragmented, sentences looped. Floor plans of the house from the film appeared drawn from memory. Some of them showed rooms that weren't in the movie. Colleagues noticed changes in his behavior. He stopped responding to questions directly, started referring to scenes no one remembered filming. Eventually, he was found in the university screening room, watching a version of The Comeback that no one else had seen, rearranged scenes, new audio, shots that didn't exist in any known cut. When asked where he got it, he replied, "It was always there. It just needed someone to see it right." He was institutionalized shortly after. His thesis was never completed, but a single page remained in his folder, a list of timestamps, and next to each, one repeated phrase, "She speaks here." Fact 19. The fire that burned the wrong reel, or the right one. In 1986, a fire broke out in a storage facility in Surrey that housed reels from dozens of British productions. Electrical fault, minor damages. But The Comeback wasn't so lucky. Only one reel from the film was destroyed, the original opening sequence. That reel contained a scene cut from the theatrical release. A dreamlike, non-linear montage, religious symbols, reflections that didn't mirror, audio that only made sense when reversed. Walker fought to keep it in. The studio overruled him. The footage was archived, then gone. Fire inspectors said the blaze should have spread across multiple racks, but it didn't. The flames formed a corridor straight to the comeback's reel. The metal canister melted completely. No salvageable frame, no backup copy, no digital transfer. The final report described it as targeted combustion, but no explanation followed. Walker never discussed the loss publicly, but in one letter, later auctioned, he wrote, "That footage was never supposed to be played twice." Fact 20. The voice that wasn't in the script but stayed in the film. Near the midpoint of the comeback, there's a brief transitional scene. No dialogue, just a long hallway, empty, a slow pan, ambient hum, and if you listen closely, a voice. A single word, "Don't." It doesn't appear in the subtitles. It's not in the closed captions. It isn't listed in the audio mix log. Sound engineers tried to locate the source. Nothing. No spike in the waveform. No boom mic interference. Some thought it was bleed from another take. But when the raw footage was checked, the whisper was embedded beneath everything. One fan isolated it, slowed it down, and played it in reverse. The word became a phrase, "She's still here. You let her in." No one in the cast recorded it. No one remembers hearing it on set, but it's there in every version of the film. And once you've heard it, silence never sounds clean again. Bonus fact, the line no one said, but everyone heard. There's a moment barely noticeable just after the third act begins. A character walks through the manor's east corridor. The sound mix drops. For 2 seconds, it's almost silent. Almost because layered beneath the ambient hiss is a sentence. Not shouted, not whispered, just present. "Don't follow her." It's not listed in any dialogue sheet. It wasn't recorded during ADR. The actor in that scene has no memory of hearing it on set or in playback. Multiple restorations have tried to remove it, assuming it was a glitch. But every time it's filtered out, a new line surfaces in its place. In one version, "She never left." In another, "You weren't supposed to see this." No one knows who the voice belongs to. No one knows when it was added. And yet every version of the film, across all formats, includes it, like it was always there, like it was waiting to be noticed, like it was meant for the viewer, not the characters. You've heard the facts. Now tell us, was the comeback just a film with a troubled production, or something that recorded more than it should have? Which detail stayed with you the longest? Which one felt too specific to be fiction? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you're ready to go deeper into forgotten corners of film, like, subscribe, and wait for the next one. Because some stories don't end when the screen fades to black. They wait, right where you left them.